Welcome back to our series on the architecture of modern business. We are continuing our journey through the organizational hierarchy, that complex middle ground where strategy meets execution. If you recall our last session, we explored the concept of strategic performance management. We looked at how organizations try to measure success, but measurement is only half the battle. Today we turn to the other side of that coin, strategic management control. Now, the word control often triggers negative associations. We think of bureaucracy, red tape, or a manager breathing down our necks, but I want you to think bigger. At its most fundamental level, control is the only thing standing between an organization and chaos. It is the mechanism by which we create order out of conflict. In this chapter, we are going to unpack the machinery of control. We will see that control isn't just a checklist, it is a response to the fundamental ontological condition of existence. Contradiction. Whether it is nations arguing over trade or a manager and an employee disagreeing on a bonus, where there is contradiction, there must be control. This exploration is too rich for a single sitting, so we are splitting this discussion into two distinct parts. In this episode, Part 1, we are going to dissect the conventional foundations of management control. We'll look at the classic economic theories that treat people like contracts, and the systems theories that treat organizations like machines. Then in Part 2, we will shift gears entirely. We will move away from the static, conventional view and explore the strategic approach. That is where we will introduce Robert Simon's famous levers of control framework to understand how we balance innovation with discipline. But first, we must lay the foundation. Let's step into the machinery of conventional control. To understand how we manage organizations today, we have to look at the two dominant intellectual traditions that have shaped the field: agency theory and systems theory. They offer very different views of the world, yet they sit side by side in the corporate psyche. Let's start with agency theory. This view is rooted in economics. It strips the organization down to a very simple, perhaps somewhat cynical relationship: the principal and the agent. Imagine a firm not as a community, but as a nexus of contracts. You have the owner, the principal, who wants to maximize profit. And you have the manager or the employee, the agent, who has been hired to do the work. Here is the problem, or what economists call the agency problem. Agency theory assumes that the agent is self-interested. They are assumed to be work-averse and risk-averse. Left to their own devices, the theory suggests they won't naturally work as hard as the owner wants them to. Furthermore, the agent knows more about the work than the owner does. This is called information asymmetry. So you have a contradiction. The owner wants maximum profit, the agent wants maximum comfort. How do you solve it? You solve it with a contract. In this worldview, management control is essentially about designing the perfect compensation contract. You need a mix of fixed wages and performance-based incentives, or rents, to align the agent's greed with the owner's goals. Now, as shown in this diagram, agency theory-based management control design amounts to designing a performance contract that maximizes the principal's net return. This is, in effect, to design a contract in which the principal can keep the agent's risk and work level at a particular level at which the principal's net returns are to be maximized. If you have ever wondered why we obsess over bonuses, stock options, and pay for performance schemes, you are looking at the legacy of agency theory. It suggests that if we can just get the contract right, and if we can buy enough information to monitor the agent, we can solve the problem of human motivation. But we know organizations are more than just contracts between individuals. This brings us to the second and perhaps more dominant perspective in the field of strategic management: systems theory. If agency theory looks at the individual or dyadic relationships, systems theory looks at the machine. It views the organization as an open system, a collection of interdependent parts that interact with the outside world to achieve specific goals. Within systems theory, the most enduring concept is cybernetics. Now, don't let the sci-fi name fool you. You experience cybernetic control every day. Think of the thermostat in your house. It has a clear objective: keep the room at 20 degrees. It has a sensor, a detector, to measure the actual temperature. It has a comparator to see if the actual temperature matches the goal. And if there is a gap, a variance, it triggers an effector, the heater, to fix it. This is exactly how conventional management control treats a company. We set a budget, the objective. We use accounting to track spending, the detector. We compare the actual spend to the budget, the comparator, often using variance analysis. And if we are off track, managers take corrective action, the effector. It is elegant, it is logical, it envisions the organization as a programmable process where inputs are converted into outputs, regulated by feedback loops. But is it realistic? Hofstede, a prominent researcher in this field, argued that not everything fits this neat cybernetic box. He introduced a typology to show us that control varies depending on how clear our goals are and how measurable our outputs are. If you are running a factory assembly line, the goals are clear and the outputs are measurable. That's routine control, perfect for cybernetics. But what if you are running a research lab or a government department? Maybe the goals are vague, maybe you can't easily measure the output. How would you measure how the government upholds democratic values? In those cases, control isn't a thermostat. It becomes political, depending on negotiation and power, or it becomes judgmental. Political control is the opposite of routine control. Routine control is cybernetic in terms of clarity of objectives and the measurability of outputs, while political control lacks both, creating a situation in which political power and negotiations become the crucial acts of control. This is a crucial insight. Conventional control tries to measure everything, but as we move into complex strategy, we enter realms where the thermostat approach simply breaks down. Let's deepen this systems perspective by looking at the structure of the organization itself. We call this the hierarchical perspective. This view relies heavily on structural functionalism, a concept championed by the sociologist Talcott Parsons. Parsons argued that any social system, including a company, has 4 survival needs. He called them the AGIL imperatives: adaptation, goal attainment, integration, and latency. It sounds abstract, but it maps perfectly onto how we structure our companies. Think about the classic management hierarchy established by Robert Anthony. At the top, you have strategic planning. This corresponds to Parsons' need for adaptation, figuring out how the organization fits into the changing environment. In the middle, you have management control. This addresses goal attainment and integration, making sure resources are mobilized to set and achieve specific goals through interdepartmental coordination. And at the bottom, you have operational control. This handles latency, ensuring routine tasks are done efficiently and a culture of efficiency is maintained. So when we look at an org chart, we aren't just looking at who reports to whom, we are looking at a machine designed to satisfy the functional imperatives of a system's survival. And finally, we must look outward. The systems approach acknowledges the environmental perspective. The organization is an open system. It relies on the environment for resources, and that environment is not dependable. It is volatile. To manage this, organizations structure themselves to mirror the outside world. We have a finance and accounting department to handle the shareholders in the capital market. We create a marketing department to handle the customer environment. We create a legal department to handle the regulatory environment. We create HR to handle the labor market. We literally build our internal control structure to cope with external contradictions. So let's synthesize where we are. In this first part, we have explored the conventional landscape of management control. We've seen that it is driven by the need to resolve contradictions. Through the lens of agency theory, we see control as a contract designed to align self-interested agents with profit-maximizing principles. Through the lens of systems theory and cybernetics, we see control as a feedback loop, a thermostat designed to keep the organizational machine running efficiently towards a preset goal. And through the lens of structural functionalism, we see the hierarchy itself as a tool for survival, ensuring we adapt, achieve goals, and maintain order. These theories provide the bedrock. They explain how we manage the business as usual. They explain budgets, variances, and org charts. But there is a flaw in this conventional view. It is largely static. It assumes we know the goal. It assumes we can measure the output. It assumes the environment will sit still long enough for us to react. In today's world, those assumptions are dangerous. We need to do more than just conform to a plan. We need to innovate. We need to adapt to strategic uncertainties that we couldn't predict. We need to balance the need for profit with the needs of people and the planet. This brings us to the edge of the conventional view. In the previous chapter, we discussed performance management. In this episode, we've discussed the machinery of control. But how do we bridge the gap between controlling employees and inspiring them? How do we control for creativity? That is the challenge of strategic management control. In part 2 of this chapter, we will introduce Robert Simons's Levers of Control framework. We will move beyond the thermostat and look at how belief systems, boundary systems, diagnostic control systems, and interactive control systems allow organizations to navigate the tension between innovation and control. We will explore how this framework helps us manage the ultimate contradiction, the need to create value while saving the planet. Join me next time as we turn the levers.